Well, it was a normal start to a day. Came out, it's about -6 outside. Jumped in the Slug, the ever reliable Slug, and dead battery. And I thought, well, that's unusual. And it's because I'm an idiot. And I left the interior light on when I was messing about the other day. Not a big problem, you think. So I've run off to the house, grabbed my 10mm spanner. I've pushed the Slug back to give me a little bit more space because there's a car parked in front of it. And yeah, this is where it all went a little bit downhill. Because when I moved it back, look what I found. Not a big problem, you think, it's just an oil leak bend. Well, anybody who's been following the channel, actually maybe I've not even really mentioned this before, but I had a huge amount of oil leak problems with this when I first changed the gearbox over. I just couldn't get the CV boots to seal properly. I think they're a little bit old, but it's been doing well, but they've finally given out yet again. And I'll be honest, it's kind of the nail in the coffin a little bit for the old Slug, in a good way. There's so many little bits I need to sort out with this. I need to sort out the tack. The interior's looking a little bit ropey now, like the seat needs sorting out. I've got a couple of new headlights to go on. I've got loads of new parts that I've just ordered that you don't know about yet. And I thought to myself, rather than keep patching the old boy up, I think he deserves a little bit more love. I've had a little bit of a change of plan. So the turbo now is going to be my main point of focus. I'm going to leave the old boy sat on the side of the road once I've cleaned that oil up. I'm going to put a piece of card under there or something so the neighbours don't get too annoyed. But I'm going to focus the next 1 to 2 weeks just solid on the turbo. I'm not going to touch this car, try and fix it, try and drive it. I'll charge the battery up, that is it. I've made some really genuinely good and exciting progress on the turbo in the last couple of days, which I will take you into next because I've been filming a few bits for that. But this is it. The Slug is going into hibernation for the next few weeks while I get the turbo on the road as my daily. I'm lucky enough to have other cars, so I don't need to use this anyway. And then we're going to pull the Slug into the garage and we're going to throw some time at it. It's not going to be like months. I want it to be my couple of week project to get it properly buttoned up, ready for when the supercharger is going on there, which is also progressing quite well with parts turning up. So for the time being, I'm sorry to say, the old Sluggers is going to have to take a back seat while we delve into turbo times. But let's go check that out, because that has all got very, very interesting. And the reason I said I've been making some proper exciting progress with the turbo is I've literally been breaking some real ground at the moment. So anyone who's been following the channel for any length of time knows that I've had this car running before, and it used to idle. I mean, okay, it idled way too high, but it idled anyway. Then I had problems with the fuel pump and stuff, fixed all that, messed around with a few other bits, and then since it started this time, it will not idle. I have to blip the throttle, keep on punching away at it, and it'll idle then. But and I didn't change anything, so it proper annoyed me, and I was determined that it wasn't just going to be because of the tune. I hadn't changed anything on the mapping or anything on the fuel or anything like that. And then all of a sudden, when I had it running the other day, it dawned on me. I was looking at the fueling table, which anybody who's ever seen a fueling table has literally got revs along the bottom and then inlet pressure, kPa up the other side. And I noticed every time that I revved it, it was just moving along the revs. It wasn't actually moving up with pressure as well, which it should, especially on, well, in any car, especially on a turbo. So I had a little rummage around. I thought to myself, that's going to be the map pressure. And I thought this while I was in bed about 11 o'clock at night. I remember thinking, I bet that map sensor's knackered. And lo and behold, I came downstairs the next morning, came running out of it, and one of the little tiny pins had snapped on the map sensor. And I will show you it right now. But it did remind me that this map sensor wiring was actually meant to be a temporary thing, and that temporary thing ended up being a permanent thing, so I completely forgot about it. But I'm going to flip the camera and I will show you exactly what I've done. But rest assured, I'm going to be fixing this properly, and I'm just waiting for the parts to turn up off of eBay. But it's just bodged for now. So among this sea of things that it's got going on here, this is my map sensor. So as you see there, it's got a pipe coming from the inlet for the boost pressure. Then it goes to this tiny little GM map sensor, and as you will see, when I said about it being a bodge, we've got 3 of the pins I didn't need, so we bend those down, and I've soldered the wires directly onto it. That is not at all how you should be doing that. And like I said, it was a temporary measure just to make sure that the wiring was right, and it just all worked okay. And I just plain forgot about it. So I've ordered another one. I've got a new map sensor coming. I've ordered some PCB board, which is like the little circuit breaker kind of board. I'm going to solder the actual sensor onto that, and then I'm going to solder a 3-wire pin connector, like a proper connector, like a waterproof one, onto that. And then I'll get a little 3D box printed for it. It'll be its own little kind of self-contained little map sensor unit. And in that way I can just bolt that onto the back of the firewall for now, until I find a better place for it. And then I can just plug it in. And if I ever want to extend it and move it somewhere else, all I've got to do is just cut that connector off and just make it longer, and happy days. So that'll be done. But what that does mean, when I did fix it, is this. It idles. It idles really well. I mean, all right, that was absolutely stone cold. It's about 9:45 at night, so it doesn't sound particularly great. And it's running very fat as well, which I did realise, even with the new tune on there. But I did just fire it up and it ran like a dream. I swear to God, I turned it, second turn of the starter, it fired straight up, just idled lovely. I have done a little bit of work. It's a little bit nerve-wracking, obviously, where this has been a while since this actually ran. So I couldn't really record a lot of it because I was just trying to concentrate. But what I've done so far is I put the laptop on, and because it was obviously idling now, I just sat there, just bringing the fuel in down. I was just doing select all on the whole table. I'll try and show you it at some point in the video. Just do minus figures and just bring the whole table down. So I started off about 10 to 1 on the fuel. I've got it on about 12 now, but it does obviously need to come down a bit more because that's still pretty fat. But that leads me on to my next problem, is why does this car insist on revving about, it is consistent as well, it sits at 2,200 revs, that's exactly what it idles at. And yeah, that's kind of my fault. Well, it's not my fault, it is lack of knowledge. I didn't realise this was a thing. This thing's got an idle control valve fitted, which I'm actually going to show you now. Let's turn the camera around and I'll explain it as we go because it'll be more interesting. Right, this is the throttle body, okay? They're fundamentally all the same on most cars. I mean, this obviously is single point injection, so the injector sits in there. The one on the turbo is multi-point injection. The only difference is it doesn't have this, but obviously it's got a number of sensors on there, but one of those is throttle position, and then one of them's idle control valve. Now the idle control valve is literally that. So what it does is when your butterfly is shut, if your engine needs to have slightly more revs, this is like an old-fashioned way of doing it, I guess, rather than having the drive-by wire throttle. What it does is it opens this little valve and it directs air past the butterfly down into the inlet, effectively bringing your revs up. Now it will usually do that like if you put on loads of electrical things and the alternator is taking a bit of a draw from the engine, it will just bring the revs up just to pick it out. Now I always thought and was led to believe that without power going to this, it was shut. But apparently that is not the case. It's actually whatever state it was at when you turned it off. So if it was open when you turned it off, then it's stuck open to that. And within reason, it generally needs power to it to shut it and then slowly open it as it needs it. But so I didn't know that. So it turns out actually that it's just been sucking massive loads of air down there, which explains why it revs so much. So what is the answer, Benjamin? Well, thankfully with these throttle bodies, there is a top and a bottom half. I actually had that round the wrong way because it should be like this, but I was just doing it for an example. Now this is obviously where it diverts it through the top, down there and down into the inlet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to block this up, but I'm going to do it between the two halves, because once you tighten this down, it will clamp that down onto this piece. So what I've done, so I don't need anything too hardcore, one, because it's not going to fit between the two layers, and also, you know, within reason, once that's sealed and clamped on there, there should be no chance of this sucking through. So this is a relatively thin, but still pretty sturdy piece of aluminium. Now I'm going to flatten that out a little bit more. I'm going to put it on there. But what I'm going to do is use a really strong, like a Loctite gasket sealer. I'm going to put a little bit of sealer around here, not too much, just sucks anything in. I'm going to put that on there. I'm going to put the old thing back on top of there and then clamp it down. And then I'll leave it, you know, potentially. Actually, that's a lie. I probably won't leave it. I'll probably end up doing it straight away, but it should be all right. And then in theory, then that is completely ruled out that idle control valve at all, because I forgot to mention, because I'm running micro squirt, I'm not running like idle control valve at the moment. Apparently, it should be fine. There's very few circumstances where it'll be a problem. It might rev a little bit low at times, but if it comes to it, I'll just wire in a new one. I'll probably put like a slightly better one in the kind of stepper style one on here. But let's crack on with that. So what I have to do is take this boost pipe off, usually just these two connectors and this, undo this top hat. I'll move that out of the way. Now thankfully, even though all this has got all the wiring and all the cables and stuff on there, as you can see from this one, all I need to be able to do is to lift it up enough to be able to get that sealant and that plate in and then put it back down. It does just click into place. Once that's done, I'll fire it up. And within reason, there should be no reason whatsoever that it doesn't just idle really nice and low. And that would be perfect because it means I can sit there, just get that fuel in spot on with it idling, and then just slowly build the revs up and just check what the fuel is doing. It also means it won't tick off my neighbours while I'm warming it up because, I mean, I don't know if you've ever heard, well, obviously you would have done, a car in a small garage doing 2,500 revs when it's cold as well. I did get it up to 70 degrees actually, and it actually smoked like mad. So it was just burning off everything from the engine, but it was really nice to see it warming up. Otherwise, yeah, let's do that. I'll set the camera up and then we'll just crack on. There you go, look, a lovely custom top hat by my man at Crafty Metal. Really nice job actually, but aluminium, so it just dissipates heat a little bit better. But what you'll see there is I've got a couple of spaces, just so with the aluminium, just so when you tighten it down, rather than it buckling the top, it just does that. But as you'll hopefully be able to see, that's the difference with the MPI and the SPI injector. Throttle body is obviously there's no injector in there. This is the 38mm, so it's decent size really. And this is obviously what we're going to be blocking off. So I'm just going to get a screwdriver, just prise this bottom half and top half apart. Then we'll get the sealant in there and the little plate, and then hope for the best. There we go. Now obviously it's going to be important to make sure I seal this all up properly. I mean, this gasket's okay. What I will do is probably just put a tiny little bit of sealant on there just to be sure. But I'm just going to lift this up. I'm going to put the piece of metal underneath. I'm just really hoping that it's not going to cause me any problems with sealing this. So like I said, I'm just going to peel this off, put some black sealant around there as well. So hopefully that tiny little gap is going to be adding thickness with that piece of metal won't cause me any problems. But I'll put the camera down. I'll probably time lapse it again, but I might move a little bit closer this time. There you go, let's give that a look. So that is pretty much the gist of it. Oh, if it focuses, there you go. Yeah, so I've just sealed it up. I'm going to put a little bit of sealant again, just around that outer bigger ring. And again, just a little bit round, probably just round here, just to make sure it seals it up. And then, yeah, hopefully, once that's all clamped down, we should be good to go. I'm pretty certain that the bottom, oh, you can't really see it, the actual bottom gasket for this is absolutely fine, because I think I replaced that when I did this before, fingers crossed. It was a while ago that I've had this off, so who knows. But I'll literally just do the sealant now, I'll button that up, and then I'll come back to you after that. Right, that's all buttoned up. I'll just put it all back together. I'll show you in a second, but obviously you've seen what it's like. The eagle-eyed amongst you will notice I took the dump valve off. Now, that wasn't just purely to remove this. I didn't really need to do it, but I am not too convinced about this dump valve. I bought it second-hand off eBay for about £20. The person I contacted, I asked him kind of what boost spring was in it, like what kind of pressure he was running before. I'll be honest, I think he kind of just said what I wanted to hear rather than what it was actually on. So usually anybody out there who's ever had a turbo, and especially anybody who's ever had a dump valve, when it's idling, at least in my experience, you can usually just see the little valve in it kind of fluttering, and you only have to give the throttle a tiny little bit of a blip and it shuts. You can just see it shutting when it's got quite a light spring. This one doesn't move at all. Like, it is literally just sat there. Even when I was revving it, not a lot admittedly, but the little valve, actually I'll show you, look. It's actually like just inside there, look. Can you just see, or just about see, inside that hole, there's that little kind of, well, it looks like a little cylinder. That should be opening and closing. That is the essence of a dump valve. As soon as it registers that you've got positive boost in your inlet, it shuts to let the boost build up. As soon as you come off the throttle and that boost drops, it opens, lets the air out. I don't think this is doing it. I think it's got way too hard a spring on it. So I've taken it off just to measure it up. So I'm buying a adjustable one. It's nothing too fancy, but it's yeah, it's just got a little adjuster on the top. So rather than just having a fixed strength, you can either have it on really light, or you can wind it up to be a lot harder. So at least in this instance, I'll have it on quite a light setting. So I'll just wait for that to turn up. For the time being, I'll whack this one on there because boost has got nothing to do with my problems at the moment. So other than that, it needs a bit of coolant in it. I checked the oil already, that's all good. So even with it getting up to temp the other day, it looks like the oil's getting around the system and stuff okay. Other than that, I'll open the door. I mean, I've got the heater on at the moment, so opening the door is something that I don't particularly want to do because I'm going to be freezing my nads off, but it's all right. We're going to fire it up, and all being well, it idles. if it does, I'm not going to worry about the laptop too much initially. I just want to see whether that has actually done the job. Let's jump in the car and see if it's done it, because I could be all absolute tosh with what I've just said if this doesn't work. Right, just wait for this laptop to fire up. It always seems to lose the will to live at the actual worst possible moment, so the battery on is shot. But I'm just going to let this fire up. I know I said I wouldn't worry too much about the laptop, but I do want to make sure now that obviously it's not getting all that extra air, it doesn't throw anything else off and it's not running terribly. So I'll kick this in and then we'll fire it up. Right, here we go. Here we go. Oh, another day, another potential problem fixed. I mean, let's face it, we're getting a little bit closer every time. Now, I haven't changed anything. I will bring up the fuel settings table again. There's the fuel VE table. That is the main fueling table right there. Come on. There you go. Now, straight away, this is a massive improvement over what it was before, because you can see it's sat there and it's registering something where it's always sat down here before. Right, let's give this a shot. If I need to bring the fueling down, like I said, I will just, usually you can just highlight some of the cells if you like. So if you just want to bring the fueling up or down on these areas. But at the moment, I'm just concentrating on the whole table. So Control A like you normally would. And then you can either press minus up here or minus on your keyboard. And it just asks you then how many you want to bring all those cells down by. But let's not worry about that for the time being. Let's see if it starts. Yep, I'm an idiot. The terminal had come off. So right, let's try that again. Okay. Now that is to be expected, because obviously now it doesn't have the idle control valve anymore. It's not getting that extra air that it needs. So at the moment it is running, that's a little bit of throttle. We are still running too rich, so let's do it. Let's do Control A, minus. I reckon we bring that down 4. Burn it. Gotta try and come off the throttle really slow and see if it'll idle. Nah. Right, let's just try and get a little bit of temperature in it, shall we? So I reckon we'll bring that down another 4. Don't want to go too crazy, but it's definitely still running. There we go, we're starting to get there now. Still a little bit on the rich side, so if I come off the throttle, yeah, that's still fat down here. So I reckon now it's actually surprisingly difficult to do this with one hand, so let me just put the camera down. I actually paused it there, and it's the following night, because I got out of the car actually after that point. I thought I should probably check for leaks and stuff, because you should absolutely do that if you've built your own car, especially if you're well, I'm not entirely certain whether you tightened everything up. And I actually did have quite a decent oil leak from a few little spots actually from around the sump. It's pretty annoying. I mean, I've cranked the bolts up a little bit on one side. I've got to go and do the other side now, just in case. But I'm really hoping I don't have to drain the oil, drop the sump again, and then reseal it. Because I thought I did a really good job of it the first time around. So hopefully it just needs tightening back up again, where the little bit of heat's just loosened off. So I'll do that. The other thing I need to do as well is I did just check with a couple of people whether the fact that it was just cutting out and not idling at all was normal for having cut out the idle control valve, and it is. So all they said I need to do is just to adjust the throttle stop screw. So that's just literally just a little screw that just stops, lets the throttle go back in position. So obviously if you screw the screw, if you do the screw up a little bit more, it just means the throttle can't go back a little bit. So it keeps the butterfly open just a little bit. So I'm going to do that next as well. And also, happy days, my few bits have turned up courtesy of eBay. So as I said to you before, I've got my new map sensor. So the new map sensor obviously is exactly the same as the one that goes on there, so same deal. I've got this, so in case anyone didn't have a clue what I was talking about when I said about PCB board, it's actually this stuff. So it's literally just got, see it on there, little metal rings, little connectors at the top, and the actual sensor, I'll show you all this in a minute anyway, just pushes through in there, you solder it on the other side, and then you can solder wires onto it, so you just make it like its own little unit. And I'll be honest with you, this was extortionate. I got this off eBay because it was exactly what I was after. It was like £4 for like some crappy little 3-pin connector. I mean, I apologise to anyone out there who makes these and knows why that's worth nearly a £5. Either way, solder that end onto the PCB board, that end onto my ECU loom, and then good to go. So do you know what? I might do that while I'm at this end as well. But yes, nothing else. I need to sort that oil leak out because that's going to do no one any favours. Sort the throttle stop out. And then fingers crossed we are good. What I might do actually for the throttle stop, without having to keep guessing it, I might find a couple of little bits of certain thickness, just put them between the stop, fire it up, and if I know then how thick I need to, wind the screw up. But it's all go. It's all go. I fix one thing and then something else spews out. But whatever, man. If it was easy, you wouldn't be watching this channel, would you? Right, job one. Let's do the throttle first. And I've actually had a brainwave. Now, anyone who's got a garage will have one of these. This is my tin of every single nut and bolt that didn't have a job doing something else. Goes in there. If you strip a car, you take some parts apart, you just chuck them in here. There's everything, little spaces and rods. And it's helped me out in more situations than you could possibly imagine. And I thought to myself, I reckon that's going to be a pain adjusting that screw, and it is. I've tested it out on this one. Where is it? So this is the screw that I'm talking about. There's like a little stopper here. So when you do your throttle, it only lets it come back so much. Obviously, if you had a really long screw on there, you'd have your throttle on quite a lot. Now, you have to undo it or do it up with this little Allen bolt here. It's a pig to get to, and it's always seems to be really stuck on. So I thought, well, actually, because this end is just a threaded bolt, I wonder if I've got a nut that fits on it, and I do. And it's almost exactly the height. So I'm actually going to put that on there, and then loosen it, undo it, so that it pushes up, get it to the exact position I want, and then either put a washer under there, or just Loctite it. But either way, I'm going to test that out, and if this works, I'm going to be buzzing. Right, it's on, but that's anyone's guess whether that's actually done the job. So if you can just about see, if I move this out of the way, ooh, there's that bolt just under there. At the moment, you can see it's just a little bit higher up, so I'm hoping that's going to be just enough to bring the idle up. It hasn't got to be anything mental, sort of 900 revs to be lovely. Then we'll go from there. What's up next? Oh yeah, the oil leak. I'm not looking forward to this. Right, so that's all the sump bolts tightened up. Obviously, I don't know whether that's worked until I do. There were a few of them that actually did need a little bit of a tweak. They weren't loose, but as anyone knows, liquid would get out of anywhere. So I've tightened those up. I do know that also on the radiator with the sensor, I'm not using the sensor anymore because I'm using it from the inlet side of it anyway. But it does seem to be leaking a little bit of coolant. But obviously, for me to fix that, I need to drain the coolant. And let's face it, when all this is done, as a safety measure anyway, I'm just going to change all the oil. The gearbox oil is brand new, so I won't worry about that. But I'll do the coolant and the spark plugs and everything all in one go. So even if it's a tiny little leak, I'll leave that for now. And then when it actually comes to it, I'll drain all the coolant off it properly, flush the system out. I'm pretty certain that's a new copper washer on there, so I have no idea why that's still leaking. I mean, I'll probably try and make some sort of bung for it instead of it just being the sensor, because I don't need it anymore. So what's next? Map sensor, right. Let's do the map sensor. I'm going to bust the soldering iron out. My gas one's broke, I think, but we'll give it another try. And then we'll see how we get on. First time I've done anything with PCB boards and wired soldering onto them. So if it all goes to pot, at least I've got 2 halves of the soldering board to use it on. So let's do it. Oh, I did just hurt my back, actually. I tell you what, being 6'4" and working in a garage like this does you no favours. Right, we are all set up. Would you believe I didn't actually used to like doing this kind of stuff, not wiring, but like these little fiddly jobs. I used to prefer just getting stuck in and doing like the more mechanical stuff, or like body work and things like that. But after doing, trying to do the supercharger conversion, building this for so long, and a lot of the other car stuff I've been doing, I actually quite enjoy doing this stuff now. So I've got my little gas-powered soldering iron. If you ever do much soldering, definitely get one of these. I mean, the tip on this one definitely needs some love. I need to get a new one, but it's so much easier than having a wire, and it heats up super quick. Like I said, I've got the PCB board, the sensor and the wire. Get some decent soldering wire as well, and one of these little bad boys. Because you'd be surprised how much easier it is when you're trying to solder 2 things together if you can hold them in these little clamps. And then that way, you've got both hands. So I'll set the camera up. Probably what I'll do is I'll just, so I can use both hands and get the camera angle and stuff, I'll just do each little bit and just show you as I go on. Right, so first thing to do is to get this mounted to the board. So what I've done is just push those pins through the little holes. See, they just go through, they just go through the side like that. I'm just bending it down because what I probably will do is actually put, as long as I won't put too much on it and wreck it, put a tiny little bit of hot glue or something on that and then just secure it down so it's actually like flat and sticks to the actual part. I said I don't need, if I flip it over, I don't need these bottom couple of pins. I just need the top three. Again, when I put this on, I do need to make sure I get everything around the right way because I'm flipping it over to what I've got on the car. And then when all that's done, I will turn this over and then I will solder these onto the relevant pins onto the back. It's a little bit on the long side, so probably what I'll do is I'll shorten this up just so the actual connector's short, but I'll leave plenty of wire on that end. Right, so what I've done, just to save any confusion, the 3 pins I'm not using, oh my goodness me, that does not want to focus. The 3 pins I'm not using, I've bent up, and the 3 pins I am using, I've bent down. It's actually holding that in there quite nicely now, so I still will hot glue it, but let's not freak out too much about that. The old gas soldering iron is doing its thing. Now the hard bit. Right, now you're going to have to take my word for this because I don't think you're going to be able to see that, but I promise you there are 3 very, very small blobs of solder just on each of those terminals. Now, the trick here is to not overdo it and try and make these like lovely round blobs of solder, because obviously if you touch 2 of these across, you're screwed because then you're going to be cross-connecting connectors on your sensor, so obviously it's going to be getting bad readings. So I'm happy with that. Like I said, I'm just going to glue this down so it's nice and strong. And then I just got to make sure I get the connector soldered up to it, which is going to be the tricky bit. I haven't entirely worked out how I'm going to do that yet, without making, because there's just such a small gap between each one. But either way, I shall crack on because it's going pretty well so far. Et voila! That's finished the thing. So hopefully you'll agree it looks a lot better than the thing that's on there already. I will trim this up at some point. It was really, really fiddly, but it actually went pretty good. So what I did was, once I finished soldering up all the points, I did get my little tiny little screwdriver. I did just run it between each one just to make sure I didn't have any wires touching or little bits of solder and stuff. And I'm pretty happy with that. And just as like a little belts and braces kind of thing, because I had the hot glue gun anyway, just to glue the actual sensor down to the board. I just ran a little bead, as you can just about see there if I look at the camera, a little bead of hot glue just across there, just to stop anything shifting or like anything sort of contact or between those 2 points. So hopefully that is all good. The only way to know this for sure is when I solder the other connector onto the other end and then whack it on the car, and fingers crossed it works just as well as the slightly ropey one that's on there in a minute. But all in all though, really happy with that. That was maybe 30 quid all in, £20 for the sensor, less than that though, 26 quid, something like that. Right. Enough waffle. I'm going to get my soldering on and I will be back as soon as this next bit is finished. And done. Now the big question now is going to be, did the bolt on the throttle stop fix the idling problem? Did me tightening up the sump bolts fix the oil leak, and are there any more? And did my first attempt at making a map sensor using some PCB board actually pay off? And did I stuff up the wiring? Now to find out, I'm going to be annoying and you're going to have to join me on the next episode because well, quite frankly, I think this video is long enough as it is. So join me next time. Thanks a lot for stopping by. If it all goes to plan, I'm going to be ringing up to book it in for an MOT, knowing full well it's going to fail on some stuff. But I want to know what. I want to know what is left on the list. So I will book it in for an MOT, take it down the road, get them to tell me all the 177 things wrong with it. Then I'll bring it back, fix them, and then it will have an MOT and we'll go mapping. And to find out if it did, you're going to have to join me on my next episode because I'm annoying like that. And I feel like this episode is probably long enough as it is. So do that. Come back next time. We'll test out all those things and more. As long as it all goes to plan and I can get this thing idling and getting a good fueling up to about 3,000 revs, I'm going to book it in for an MOT, knowing full well that I'd be crazy to think that it won't fail on at least some stuff, but I want to know what it is. Then we'll bring it back, we'll fix it, take it back, and then I'll have an MOT. And feasibly, I can drive it then to the mapping. And not only that, I can actually do a little bit of mapping myself. So that will be really, really genuinely exciting if I can get that for an MOT and find out what it is the car actually needs. So yes, please join me next time. Thank you so much for subscribing. And for a lot of the comments I've been getting on the Instagram page and stuff as well. I'm genuinely enjoying hearing your feedback on it. So yeah, join me next time. Thank you so much for stopping by, and I'll see you again soon.